Hello, Gemini. This is a general reading for Gemini in June 2019. My name is Ron. I will be your clairvoyant for this reading. Currently, the astrological dimension is dealing a lot with Gemini as a move away from Taurus. So essentially a move away from all that is Venusian and bodily, and a forward movement to something more duplicitous in nature. We're dealing here with the magician energy, mercurial, priesthood, essentially anything to do with rite of passage, and anything to do with a higher sort of aspect of Mercury, manifestation, magic. Okay? The moon is what we're going to be placing most of our focus on, as well as the sun and its relation of the ego self to the sort of inner world and workings of art, creativity, and the sort of duality of the mind that Gemini is good at, left and right brain activity. Yeah, so I have a stone here. It's made of obsidian. It's from Chile, and it has a particular sort of energy to it. It's very special considering it was washed by the waters nearby a volcano and eroded into a sort of form that's really charged. It's going to help us with our reading. I'm going to go ahead and start shuffling. This is a general reading for Gemini, twin flame sort of soul energy, the twins coming in again. So if you can, just clear your mind and deal with anything that has to do with the sort of magical approach to life, manifestation, and I'll do the same. This deck is the Aleister Crowley deck, rather, 1986. Yeah, so the Fortune, Princess of Cups. Princess of Cups is coming up. Okay, I'll go ahead and cut it. Okay, so currently we are dealing with 9 of Rods energy as your sort of underlying force for the reading. This is all about manifesting a polarity between the mind, and sort of its ability to reach higher dimensions and higher philosophies, in waxing and waning of the moon, and its sort of relation and its polar sort of representation in your own self, Gemini. We're dealing here with a sort of push forward of communications that has to do with Mercury. I'm not sure what it's in right now, but there certainly is some sort of need for communication when it comes to your twin flame, at least on a sort of mental level that's linked to ego blockage. I would say there's a connection there that is sort of severed, and it's hard to relate to your twin on a mental level. At least it seems that way, but on an emotional level there's some sort of waxing. There might be an emotional core there that is definitely keeping your relationship intact. Your current situation has to do with things that are fiery of nature. We're dealing with the fire elements and Mars, as well as the sun, Surya in Indian sort of lore, is sort of what's propelling you here. Dealing with a lot to do with societal pressures that are influencing your own passions and developing your own philosophies that are sort of against the grain. You're dealing with outer influences that are going against the connection with your twin, with the sort of fiery dynamic that links to your sort of selves as well as your emotional content. There is subtlety so far in the reading. I do read reversals, and as you'll find out, there's a lot of subtle force more than anything here. A lot of mental energy, I would say, but mental energy that is based on sort of passionate drive or motivation, sensuality, sexual creation. I mean, we have a big phallus here, for example, with the 7 of Rods. and it's on fire. There certainly is a passionate sort of lust or zest for life that you're showing here to your twin. On a subtle level, it's not really being expressed right now. There could be a sort of all these characters outside of the relationship that are preventing it from happening. Friends or relatives, other parties, potentially other potential mates, are sort of not allowing for the connection to really sort of come to fruition in the material world, in the physical world, and an inability to link with your twin in a physical way. Okay. Let's see. Some more clarity, I would say, on this current sort of situation, this current sort of vibe. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we have two cards that go along with the Seven of Rods, and they are essentially the Eon and the Prince of Cups. And they came up as sort of very obvious forces that are essentially affecting this sort of Seven of Rods subtlety, okay? And it's dealing with essentially your growth. The Eon is all about sort of evolution of the self. You're trying to regenerate your sense of self, your ego identity, and its connection to higher forces or your guides, okay? And it seems to me that your guides are especially in this figure, this big sort of subtle body, this oral sort of person. Your guide is essentially silent right now. There's sort of a silent communication, but still a guiding force that's forcing or coercing connection to happen, okay? There also might have been an offer recently, an offer of not only communication, not page-like energy, but certainly a strong offer of love here. And it comes in the form of a chalice by the Knight of Cups. And in the chalice, there's a crab, okay? So there's Cancerian energy. There might be some sort of Cancerian connection, or this person could have a lot of Cancerian sort of energy in their chart. But yeah, Gem, it's very interesting considering there's also a peacock here that's sort of like out in the mist, and they're a very beautiful sort of creature. They have the capacity. Peacocks have the capacity to be very beautiful, but also very aggressive in a way, in a very sort of defensive way. There's a lot of defensive mechanisms going on in the Knight of Cups energy. And it seems to me that this offer of love was guised in, yes, a very heartfelt sort of way of pushing forward the relationship, the movement towards union. However, blockages, like in terms of the shell that your lover, your twin, would wear. To sort of protect themselves from really opening up, okay? But I mean, it was sent in earnest, and I think you really accepted this cup of love in a way, which is good. But to juxtapose it with the Seven of Rods, yeah, there's still some sort of ambience or like societal pressure that is still blocking progression, and there's also the need to develop self, with the Eon, and develop a sort of like a real sort of healed version of yourself that could, make this connection happen. That's what happens in twin flame relationships, is essentially a separation that's like caused by society's pressures and forcing you or your twin, actually, if you're marrying each other, which you should be, a mutual sort of change in evolution in the self, regardless of what society is saying. And yeah, somebody reached out recently and tried to convey perhaps a sense of growth. This could have been not a direct sort of offer either. Water is very fluid. It's very sort of it can adapt to any sort of container. It can adapt to any sort of environment, and if it's there, there's life. And there's life in this connection. But it may have come even in the form of some sort of subtlety. The message may have essentially been telepathic in a way. If you consider the mercurial sort of nature of Gemini, they're extremely mental, when it comes to conveying their message. Lots of psychic activity I see here, okay? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the bottom three, and these have to do with your twin, okay? Essentially your twin, what they're going through right now, okay? All right, so it seems to me that your twin, who is potentially an Aries, maybe a Capricorn, is dealing with potentially a lot of work, okay? That's the Three of Pentacles here, a lot of work. Sort of being crafty and sort of establishing a hierarchical position, or if it's a space of like a job or something like that, not to get too convoluted. And they've been working on this undercover, and there's a potential for great growth, at least, and communication. Third house matters. At the same time, there is a potential for a third party. I'm not saying that there is, but there might be some sort of craftiness when it comes to them meeting someone new, maybe in the workplace. Okay. Yeah, and this happens in twin flame relationships. It's quite natural to separate and explore new people, to see what you're made of, what yourself is trying to achieve in terms of relationships. But I would say this person is a mixture of both pleasure and pain. To them, or they, your twin flame, essentially is dealing with a sort of, I want to say, there's certainly a lot of passions going on here, okay? By the twin flame relation, there are two fires here. There's one here on this pillar, and then there's one that's like sort of pushing this force of kind of like strength. It's kind of like a strength card where like an animal is being sort of dominated, or there's a sort of entanglement of passions here, okay? I'm talking about lust here. The Princess of Staves is lust here. Princess of Rods is lust. There's also another princess, or rather a queen, Queen of Swords here, and Libra, Gemini, Aquarius energy. Queen of Swords runs away with the sort of head of their suitor, and that's sort of what she's doing with you. Could be dealing with anyone of the air quality, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. And dealing with a sort of ego death. Okay, this might be sort of a link that they're playing with. They're playing games here, Gemini, and it might have started in the workplace. And there certainly is a sort of dynamic that they're really flirty with this energy, but they're doing it to sort of take your ego away, or to push essentially that part of the dynamic that you two share. Is sort of a game. There's sort of a game happening here. Okay, let me clarify. I'm getting two cards to clarify this. I'll do a quick shuffle. Yeah. Let's see here. Alright, quick cut. Yeah, okay. So your person is definitely working with options and trying to figure out certain pathways with what they're doing. They're sort of, three of rods is sort of like a person that are looking for adventure in a way. It's an adventurous sort of fiery energy. There's certainly sort of a connection here with this potential love aspect. Okay, perhaps they have this for you, even if it's not a third party. Maybe they're working hard and they want to bring you some sort of fiery dimension of you after working so hard. There is also the 2 here, Major Arcana 2. It's a Gemini energy. They're certainly on your mind, and they might see you as sort of keeping secrets or being the one who knows yet does not tell sort of vibe. High Priestess, okay? Like I mentioned before, anything mercurial is essentially tied to religious or spiritual activity. I'm talking psychic, I'm talking clairvoyance, okay? The High Priestess has this web around extremely psychedelic. And yeah, I mean, there's also the camel here, some jewels, some fruits. So like in a pyramid, there's something Egyptian about it. There's perhaps Isis. This card essentially is like the sort of divine feminine and their ability to radiate and manifest in the universe. Kind of like the magician, but then also not so much. I mean, it's more of a mental sort of meta sort of thrust into the universe, okay? Yeah, so in juxtaposition of all this, your twin essentially might have secrets that they're sort of playing with. They also might see you as having secrets and like having to deal with things that you haven't told them about these like other sort of parties that are going against your relationship, okay, or influencing it a certain way. They might not even be cognizant of it, okay? This is a subtle force, but there certainly is something extremely extremely knowing. I think they know of the connection indefinitely, and they're sort of playing with that. Yeah, yeah, your lover is certainly playing with that type of energy of knowing but then not telling and keeping sort of secrets. These are universal secrets. These are also secrets of the world and their relationship to the twin flame energy. So I see essentially a lot of flirtation going on with your lover, okay?